Okay, settle down, boys. There will be lots of opportunity for rejoicing, lots of opportunity for raising slogans, but you do understand that when a speaker is presenting arguments or interjection is proceeding, there will be complete silence in the hall. Have we not noticed that the ones who make the most noise are the ones who know the least about the topic? So just be a little careful about that and conduct yourselves nicely. We have been looking forward to this occasion for a very, very long time. And for 2 years, we've not been able to physically be with each other for an event such as this. This year marks 75 years of Inter-Martiniere meets. 75 years does not mean 75 years as far as calendar years are concerned, but 75 times we have met. In between, for example, 2 years were lost in COVID. Sometimes because of ravaging floods that we had in Lucknow, meets were cancelled. Sometimes because of the political situation, we were unable to travel to Kolkata. But this is the 75th time that we are meeting, and this is wonderful. This evening's debate is chaired by Dr. Isha Yadav, whom I warmly welcome and request you to also welcome her. Dr. Yadav will be in charge of the entire proceeding, will tick you off when it's necessary to tick you off, and will also control the debate in the manner that it is meant to be controlled. Dr. Yadav is a professor of psychology at the Ram Manohar Lohia National Law University at Lucknow. She was educated largely at Loreto Convent in Lucknow. Thereafter studied at the Lady Shri Ram College for Women and did masters in applied psychology as well as a PhD from the University of Delhi. Obviously, with that kind of background, you can be sure that she has been adequately awarded certificates and prizes and so on for various academic activities in the university. Now this is a little interesting, for she is a certified hypnotherapist, and I'm terrified of that because I understand that sometimes they can even do this group hypnosis. I do hope that she will be able to use these magical powers, especially when the boys and girls start behaving a little noisy. But she is a certified hypnotherapist from the California Hypnosis Institute, receiving extensive training in advanced techniques and modalities of clinical hypnotherapy. Once again, there are several papers to her credit at international conferences which have been published and publications as well. Her areas of interest include spirituality, parenting, and gender studies. Okay? Gender studies, the girls and all the ladies in the hall, I'm sure, will be very delighted to hear that. Apart from academics, she also has experience in the corporate world, having worked for market research and undertaken several consumer behavior studies. So as you can see, we have somebody who is absolutely up to date with what is happening in the modern world, and not just up to date with the kind of work that she has done, is also guiding and leading and contributing to the modern world as well. I thank her very much for accepting our invitation to chair the debate this evening. It is her prerogative and her special joy, I am sure, to also introduce the judges for this evening's debate to you. But on behalf of La Martiniere College, Lucknow, I collectively welcome our three judges to La Martiniere College. Chairman will be making her own remarks and references to the judges who are esteemed people in the city of Lucknow as well. La Martiniere College has had an old tradition of presenting a memento, a pennant actually, annually whenever the teams from Kolkata come to Lucknow. And I call upon the captain of the Lucknow team at this time to present this pennant recording the 75th debate that we are having to the captain of the team from La Martiniere for Boys, Kolkata, Ayan Rizvi. And that's when the two captains meet. I now hand over the entire proceedings of this debate to Dr. Isha Yadav, wishing both teams the very best and looking forward to a delightful evening.
Thank you, sir. A very good evening to everyone present here. On behalf of La Martiniere College, Lucknow, I extend a very warm, heartfelt welcome to all the guests for the Inter-Martiniere Debate 2022. We're delighted to have with us this evening the team from La Martiniere for Boys, Kolkata. Welcome to the team. We're also extremely grateful to the judges for this evening's debate. We have three judges on our panel, Mrs. Sunita Aaron, Dr. Samreen Hussain, and Mr. Mohammad Altaf Masoor. Mrs. Sunita Aaron is the executive editor of Hindustan Times, Uttar Pradesh, and an author of 3 books. She is the governor's nominee on the board of management of Haridev Joshi University of Mass Communication in Jaipur. She is also the executive member of St. Anand Ram Jaipuria School, Lucknow, and also a TEDx speaker. Welcome, ma'am, and thank you for being here with us this evening. Our second judge this evening is Dr. Samreen Hussain. Dr. Hussain has completed her BA LLB from Aligarh Muslim University in 2009 and LLM from ILI Delhi in 2011. She cleared UGC NET in 2012 and was awarded her PhD in 2019. She has been teaching at Dr. Ram Manohar Lohiya National Law University since 2012. She has 10 years of teaching experience in numerous law subjects, ranging from family law to criminal law to corporate law. Although her area of interest has always been feminist jurisprudence and human rights, she has published numerous papers in national and international journals on topics ranging from climate change, reforms in personal laws, to women issues and reforms. She has also taken numerous seminars on sexual harassment at workplace, in schools, colleges, and corporates. She has also been a part of the Legal Aid Committee of RMLNLU and has also worked with women organizations like Ali and Majlis. She is passionate about law and loves teaching and learning new things from her young students. Welcome, ma'am. We're extremely grateful to you and we're delighted to have you with us here today. Our third judge, Mr. Mohammad Altaf Masoor, is a practicing advocate who primarily conducts matters before the Honorable Supreme Court and High Court, as well as various tribunal courts across Lucknow and Delhi. Mr. Masoor has had a career spanning over 25 years in litigation and has been a part of various reported judgments. He is an alumni of St. Stephen's College, New Delhi, as well as Campus Law Center, New Delhi. Sir has been practicing primarily on the civil side and has a keen interest in debating and reading. Mr. Masoor has had the chance to work with the likes of Mr. R.N. Trivedi, Mr. Harish Salve, and Mr. Preet Chidambaram in various cases, to name a few. He is always keen on engaging with young minds and guide them in the best way that he can. Welcome, sir. We're delighted to have you with us this evening. We thank all the judges and welcome them to this debate. Thank you to all the judges for making time for us and so graciously accepting to judge this evening's event. The topic for today's debate is the technology that connects us also controls us. Proposing the motion is the Martiniere College, Lucknow, represented by Ayan Rizvi, who is the principal speaker, Kritin Bhasin, the second speaker. The other two speakers are Devang Pratap Singh and Vinayak Tandon. Opposing the motion is the Martiniere for Boys School, Kolkata. The principal speaker is Nikhilesh Mukherjee. Anuj Podar as the second speaker, Pradyuman Nahata and Arav Midha as the third and the fourth speakers. All the best, boys. For the benefit of all, I would quickly spell out the rules for today's debate. The principal speakers from each side shall be allowed 5 minutes to put forward their arguments. The supporting speakers on either side shall be permitted 4 minutes each to represent their views. In every case, a warning bell shall be rung 1 minute before the time for speaking is over, and a second bell shall be rung to indicate that the speaker's time is up. Judges are requested to ignore anything which is said after the final bell has been rung. After each speaker has presented his arguments, a further 2 minutes shall be given for rebuttal. This rebuttal shall consist of questions being asked by the opposing speakers. During this rebuttal process, the questions must be confined to the substance of the speech that immediately precedes it. A maximum of 2 questions may be asked by the opposing team. Cross-questioning shall not be permitted. Only the time taken to answer the questions shall be taken into account. The questions themselves shall not be included in the 2 minutes allotted for rebuttal. Judges are requested to note the response to the question and the conviction of the argument while awarding points for rebuttal. Although marks shall not be provided for the questions asked by the opposing speakers, the judges are requested to take into account the quality of the questions posed when assessing the overall impression of the team. Speakers shall be permitted to use the flashcards and may refer to notes. However, judges are requested to note that continuous reading shall be penalized. After all speakers have presented their arguments, the principal speaker on either side shall be given 5 minutes for summing up the arguments for the team. The principal speaker of the opposition shall sum up first. The supporting speakers shall take no part in the summing up, but may assist the principal speaker with information to be used in the summation. Points are awarded for the following: for content, 20 points, delivery, 5 points, Argument 5 points, rebuttal 10 points, summing up by the opening speaker 10 points, general impression of the team 10 points. With this, we shall begin with the debate. I will now call upon the principal speaker of the proposition, Ayan Rizvi, to present his argument.
Thank you so much for that. This is the pressure we need to deal with, ladies and gentlemen. Having this spirit high, I would like to begin. A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for today's debate reads that technology that connects us also controls us. And as the principal speaker of said proposition, I take it as my utmost prerogative to present to you arguments in the favor of the motion of today's debate. At first, allow me to define some of the key terms for the topic of today's debate. At first, technology. This refers to the accumulation of scientific knowledge and studies used to create equipment for making the lives of people easier. Second, connect. This means when two or more entities are linked or associated together, whether directly or indirectly. The third key term for today is control. This refers to a situation when a person is partially or completely influenced by something in any particular aspect. Now moving on to the burden of side proposition today. We as side proposition will come up and prove to you that how technology which we use to connect us to the virtual world has an influence on our daily lives, therefore controlling us even though it has done a lot of good to us. The burden of side opposition thereby becomes that even when a person is influenced by a particular technology, he or she is in control of it, and even then that technology connects us, but not only that technology, in a specific aspect of life. Having clarified the burdens, allow me to make the House understand what are the certain axes on which the side proposition is going to rely. I, as a principal speaker, will come up and introduce to you the primary arguments of our side, which shall prove to you how our emotions, daily activities, indirectly or directly depend on technology, thereby causing us to become slaves of technology, thereby being controlled by technology. Secondly, I will explain to you that how control is usually unknown yet is still persistent. My second speaker shall come up here, further substantiate our stance, point out the loopholes in the argument of side opposition, and also provide to you two new arguments which will prove to you that how dependency on technology has increased due to the certain technological advancements which have been made. Second, he will explain to you that how technology and its main influence on our daily lives is so much so that we are being controlled by technology. My third speaker shall come up here and destroy the general arguments which have been presented by side opposition. Then he will completely nullify their case and prove to you as to why today our case stands. Having provided the roadmap of side proposition's case, I would like to explain to you a general argument of my side. As a matter of fact, 13.5% of the teens in United Kingdom and in India have themselves claimed to face depression, eating disorders, dilemma, and thereafter feeling underconfident due to their physical appearances. Why? Because they spend most of their time on social media, which is an aspect of technology. This is how their lives are influenced at most of the time. Whatever they spend is spent on their mobile phones, thereby connecting with people. That is the key term which we very well defined in the beginning. Then also, ladies and gentlemen, understand that connecting means to be having links with someone even if you are not directly linked to that individual. For example, a person is talking to someone on a group chat or is talking to someone randomly. He or she may not know who that person actually is. He or she may not be aware of who that person in actuality is yet. Since they are connecting with people, they get to see a fake image of that individual, thereby leading to a feeling of low self-esteem and thereby creating problems for that particular individual, and thereby getting more and more controlled by technology. Then, ladies and gentlemen, we need to note that technology influences an individual's work, their feelings, and other miscellaneous daily activities. A very simple question to the House today: if you get something which makes your work easier, aren't you or are you going to use it or not? A very simple question. All of us would want to make our work easier, right? That is what needs to be done. And ladies and gentlemen, for that sole purpose, technology exists. It exists to make your work easier. So when your work is being made easier and you are utilizing a particular technology for most of the time, becoming dependent on it completely, you are being controlled by the technology. Then understand that being influenced or something influencing you are two different points. We need to note that when you are influenced to any particular extent, you are being controlled. And that is what the important point here to be understood is. Now, if we take the example of the most basic technological evolutions of the invention of telephones. Now, when the telephones were invented, it slowly had an influence over the people and slowly replaced the letters, right? And thereafter, we became dependent for this activity on the letters, on the mobile phones instead of being dependent on letters. Having said that, I am extremely proud to propose. Thank you.
I now invite the opposing team for rebuttal.
Hello. So, what, in your opinion, is the exact difference between the terms influence and control?
Alright, thank you so much. Now, here, ladies and gentlemen, a clear distinction which we would like to establish is that when a person becomes influenced by a particular entity or by any particular thing which exists, that person is being controlled. Therefore, a simple thing to note is that being influenced by something is a form of being controlled by that same thing. And that is why we moved ahead to link it with control during our part of the speech. Thank you.
Second question.
Thank you for your speech, sir. So you spoke about how teenagers, due to exposure to social media, feel underconfident about their appearances, experiencing body dysmorphia and other forms of lack of confidence. Doesn't this happen in an offline setting as well, where in a society you're surrounded by attractive people, you're bound to feel that you lack to some extent?
Alright, thank you so much for that question. That is no way related to my speech, however, I'll also answer that question yet again. Ladies and gentlemen, note that when such a situation exists in an offline manner, we never said that it cannot exist in an offline format as well. What we here are to prove to you is that technology which connects us to people, technology which is there for connections, to make connections, is there to control us as well. That is what we are saying. Even if it can be done in an offline format, yes, sure it can be done. We aren't dealing with that. What our burden here is what we very well specified, which is to prove to you that the technology which we use to connect us to the virtual world has an influence on our daily lives, therefore controlling us, even though it has done a lot of good. I think that answers your question. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aaron. I now invite the principal speaker of the opposition, Nikhilesh Mukherjee, to present his argument.
Can I be heard?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The motion placed before us today reads that the technology that connects us also controls us. And as the lead speaker of side opposition, let me at the very outset clarify some extremely illogical definitions that have been put forth by proposition so that we can have a fruitful debate today. Firstly, ladies and gentlemen, understand that equating control and influence does not make sense. There are two different words in the English dictionary for a reason. Influence means to have some amount of impact on someone, to have some amount of influence, effect on someone's thinking process. For example, today, if I read a book and I like a chapter or an idea in that book and I'm influenced by that book, that does not mean that the author of the book is controlling me. What is control? Control means completely determining and deciding the fate, the actions, and the thought of someone. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the essential difference between control and influence. Having clarified that, today, let me make two fundamental distinctions which are necessary. First of all, today, it is the burden of proof of side opposition to prove to you that technology does not control people. Technology enables people. Ladies and gentlemen, technology does not act as a controller, it acts as a way of giving people more opportunities, choices, and freedom to decide to do what they want, which is completely in contrast to the definition of control. Let me explain this in the backdrop of the history of India. Now, in British India, the states of India were controlled by the British government because they had only one option, that which the British government dictated to them. However, the very concept of technology is to give us more choices, is to expand the field of possibilities, is to expand and make limitless the amount of choices that we have. Therefore, though the people of British India were controlled by the British, the very opposite happens with technology. We, the users of technology, are enabled by it to go beyond confines, to go beyond the limited number of choices that we have. Secondly, ladies and gentlemen, what is the essential argument of side proposition today? We constantly use technology and therefore we are controlled by it. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a very big difference between the normative use of something and control. Technology is a social phenomenon. As society progresses, it is propelled by the tools that the innovators of society designed. 2000 to 3000 years ago, the people of the world spent all their times with the plow in the agricultural field. As society progressed, came the telephone, came the printing press, came the telegram. And now we have the latest manifestation, social media. Ladies and gentlemen, today, the very reason we use technology is because of the perceived benefits. As the lead speaker of side proposition himself pointed out, we find technology convenient. Therefore, we do not use technology because it imposes itself on us. We use technology because we like it, because we find it convenient. Now, in the classic film Schindler's List by Steven Spielberg, which is a parable about the authoritarian regime of Nazi Germany, the epitome of control, the essential concept of control is the power to make someone do what that person does not want to do. However, the very concept of social media is we give to ourselves social media. As the constitution puts down, we give to ourselves a constitution. Similarly, at each stage of society, we give to ourselves social media. We, the customers, are the ones who control social media. Today, I, the first speaker, will talk about the diversification of opportunities. My second speaker will talk about the customer-oriented nature of technology and how it is we, the customers, who control technology. He'll also talk about how we have the power to boycott technology. My third speaker will draw a fine line between the usage and the control of technology. And my fourth speaker will talk about human attraction versus human submission. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about technology as an enabling tool. The concept of enabling is to expand the number of choices, opportunities, and routes. When we go on social media, we do so because we can find more people to interact with. Consider a young child in Uganda. He does not have access to quality education. It is because technology expanded his opportunities that he can reach quality education. Consider the printing press. Ladies and gentlemen, before the printing press, only monks had access to reading. However, that's why they could control the common people. However, with the printing press, reading became normal. And therefore, the common people could learn, understand. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, technology always enables people. Technology always increases the opportunity of people. And technology is always given to us by us, the people, us, the members of society. And we are not controlled by it. Thank you.
Inviting questions for rebuttal.
Speaker, you mentioned about how influence is quote unquote impact or effect. According to your stance and in the context of the example you gave, which is not really relevant to technology of the book, does constant impact or effect on a person's mental or physical health makes him have different control over himself or makes his control a little alter?
I see no applause for that question, and justifiably. Ladies and gentlemen, today, the difference between control and impact, as the speaker respectfully asked me, when he talked about repeated impact and repeated influence, When we are repeatedly influenced by something, that means we believe in that something to a certain extent. For example, when you read a book, and like, for example, if I read Darwin's theory of natural selection and like it, if I'm influenced by the ideas present in that book, therefore I am someone who has changed to a certain extent due to that influence. However, if I can't think anything beyond that book, and the author of that book completely makes me a slave to his will, does not give me any opportunity or choice beyond that particular one that the author imposes upon me, that is control. Repeated influence is not control, absolute influence is control. Thank you.
We have a second question. Go ahead.
Thank you for
Can we please have silence in the house?
Thank you for that speech. Sir, you mentioned about all the benefits that technology brings with it. But don't you believe that many controlling governments or even dictatorial governments do give benefits to its citizens, but at the end of the day, it does have the end goal of it being a controlling government. In this case, it being a controlling form of technology. Thank you.
Thank you. Now understand, there is the concept of this debate is not to judge whether technology is positive or negative. It's to judge the relation of technology to people. Does it control people, or is it simply a part of the lives of people? Therefore, today when you talk about authoritarian governments, they force the positive benefits down the throats of the people. If they want to give adequate water or electricity to people, they just give that to people. How does social media positively impact people? It impacts people by giving them the choice to decide what they want, whether that be to use that in a positive way, or whether that be to use that in a negative way by the various ways that the speaker of the proposition mentioned. The choice to decide how I want to use it, how I want to utilize this platform, that is how social media is different from an authoritarian government, and that is why it does not control the people.
Thank you, Nikhilesh. I now invite the second speaker of the proposition, Kritin Bhasin, to present his argument.
Good evening, members of the House. The topic under fire for today's debate is the technology that connects us also controls us. And I, Kritin Bhasin, stand here firmly as the second speaker of side proposition. Firstly, this principal speaker of side opposition came here today and said that controls means the influence that causes a change. Members, as my principal speaker explained, the difference between influence and influenced, it is simply influencing somebody is suggesting them an idea which can cause a change, and influenced means that the change has occurred. Exactly what control means, and exactly what side opposition has agreed to today. The first constructive that I would like to bring here today is that social media directly or indirectly relates with everybody here. The first example, members, haven't we all seen social media, a part of technology, influence our daily lives? Hasn't social media made an ideal image of a person? That this is the ideal image, that this is what the beauty standards of the world are, that this is what political correctness is. Isn't the social media controlling all the social standards and the ideal image of a person? So how can we say that the technology and its different aspects do not control our daily lives if that's not the case? I'll explain this further. Each and every social media site or every form of technology has an algorithm, and these algorithms are formed in a way to know everything about you. Everything that you like, everything that you comment on, everything that you engage with, everybody you connect with. Everything is stored, analyzed, and used to advertise things to you. Members, it knows what you like and how you like it. They might prefer and show you a product that you like for the purpose of advertisement. Even if you don't like an object, they'll always advertise it to you in a way which you like, how you like it, exactly what these algorithms are based for. The best example for an algorithm like this is the Cambridge Analytica issue that had happened. Simply, a company was allegedly allocated to use its algorithm to change the perspective of people to a political standpoint. Didn't we all hear about it? Didn't we all hear the cases that were going on? Didn't we all see the issues that this brought up? Because these algorithms are planned to make and influence our ideas to control us from a political standpoint and even on different perspectives. This is just one such example of all the different methods that have been used by technology and social media websites to control our ideologies. The second construct that I would like to bring to you is the dependency that has occurred due to the influence of these objects. Members, when you're dependent on something, when your life is irreparably hindered if a particular thing is taken away, then you're not in control of that thing. It is in control of you. And that is the relationship between technology and humans today. Technology is omnipresent. It is everywhere in our life. The absence of technology hinders our normal working of people since we're so dependent on these technologies. And isn't this dependency controlling us? Would without these objects our life be miserable or something that we can't even control anymore? Exactly what the topic says. That technology, something that connects us, also controls us. I'd like to bring another example to this house. I'll compare the current day of age with past. In the past, where technology wasn't so advanced and it wasn't so integrated with our daily lives, we saw people having far better privacy, having far better time. As my principal speaker mentioned, that since the rise of this technology, we've seen a lot of people having mental health issues. A lot of people had other forms of issues. Does that issue count grow today? Only for this reason. With this, I am proud to propose this motion. Thank you.
You may ask your question.
So today, side proposition has confined their arguments to the negative or adverse impacts of social media on human well-being. However, what do you say about other forms of technology that connect us, like transport, website portals, or social justice platforms on the internet that allow us to function better as a society and enact contemporary change? Thank you, Speaker, for that question. As I mentioned in my speech, we as side proposition aren't denying that they connect us and that they're beneficial for us. As we mentioned, that the technology and all social media platforms and other forms of platforms of technology, what they're doing simply is controlling us. By it be by dependency, be it by other form of means. An example is best for it. Phones were brought up into the world. The form of letters slowly faded away. Is that because they just faded away like so? No, members. It simply influenced us. In one way, controlled us to move and divert from the form of letters back into the form of new technology. So technology, we're not saying that's not beneficial, but we say that with these benefits come a disadvantage. That is that it controls us in many forms. It confines us to a limit. Thank you.
Do we have another question for rebuttal?
So, you spoke about standards prevalent on social media. What do you have to say about the fact that the greatest opposition or the greatest criticism of beauty standards and political correctness also exists on social media?
Members of this house, thank you for that question, firstly, Speaker. We've seen that social media gives freedom of speech, and that is true. But what do we see more far spread? People advocating for a better future, or do we see the beauty standards being enforced on us? Yes, we see this activism far widespread, but what is the thing that is deeply hitting our brain? The beauty standards that we are saying. That is what side proposition brings to you today. That yes, it does have its benefits. The activism does show the negative sides of technology. But what happens is what hits up subconsciously and what hits deep in our brain. what stays with us at the end of the day. And that are the negative sides of the technology. As we all know, humans have good days and bad days. But what do we remember far better? We remember the bad days. How 10 years ago I had a bad injury which left me to leave my sports day practices, which left let me to lose my gold medal that I could have won that day. That's what we remember. Thank you.
Thank you, Pritan. I now call upon the second speaker of the opposition, Anuj Poddar, to present his views.
Thank you. Very good evening to everybody present. Today's motion stood before us states that the technology that connects us also controls us. But before I start, I would like to express my gratitude to LMC Lucknow and its amazing staff and student body for how they have accepted us. This does lead me to my first point of contention, however, that despite this beautiful, sprawling 700-acre campus, and despite the 12 football fields that are constantly reiterated to us, today, side proposition has still managed to constrict the motion today. This is very, very disheartening. Not only for myself, not only for my contingent, but I feel sad for today's audience that the very ideal of technology has been diluted from the interconnection of scientific theory with machinery that leads to optimization and time saving to simply social media platforms. This does lead me to, as my first speaker said, the 3 points which I will be covering today. The first of which is, what technology are we talking about? And this is what I'm doing expressly for side proposition, since they fail to understand what technology truly stands for. Secondly, I will be talking about the customer-oriented nature of technology. And thirdly, I will be talking about the simple man-made nature of technology and how that gives us, the user, the customer, the man, how it enables us the ability to boycott technology that we find not beneficial to us. Now, firstly, I would like to expand today's motion, something side proposition has failed miserably at. And I would like to include more than simply the ragtag group of Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and other social media platforms. And I would like to talk about technology. As I already stated, what does side opposition believe technology to be? Technology today is not only social media. Technology today includes the very computer that side proposition use throughout the day to write their speech. Technology includes the very plane on which today Martiniere boys contingent flew on to grace this very event. Technology includes the very common app portal link which all of us will use to send in our application. Technology is not constricted simply to ones and zeros of a social media platform written by 1,000 coders and in an algorithmic nature. Understand today, side proposition has failed to highlight the nature of technology and what it truly stands for. Understand how is technology made? Technology is made for man. It is made for man by man. And this is its customer-oriented nature. Understand today, technology is made to optimize very simple tasks that you and I can perform rather difficult. Technology is made to save our very, very valuable time. And technology is made to lead to a more efficient lifestyle. This is what side proposition has confused personalization and dependency with utility and essential. Understand today, I am not only constricting the motion to Instagram and Facebook. Let us consider applications, since side proposition seems to like them so much, and consider some of the more useful, the more utilitarian applications such as Swiggy, Uber, or Blinkit. The very simple task of delivering an article from A to B has been made so much more easier for us. And if you are rational like me, and not irrational like the argument side proposition has presented to us today, if you are rational, you will choose to use these applications, you will choose to use this very technology that optimizes your lifestyle, will you not? But, say you choose not to do this. Say you choose not to follow this lifestyle. There is another option, and that is focusing on the man-made nature of technology. If technology, and that is technology is man-made, it offers us the decision-making capacity, the decision-making ability to choose whether or not we want to use it simply. And if you have a negative experience with the same technology, you are offered your voice. This is a democratic nation and you are offered the choice to voice your disregard and disdain for the technology and to boycott this technology. Ladies, and understand today the key highlight of my speech, today the key highlight of what side opposition is presenting to you is the decision making capacity that man-made technology offers to you. And if it is this decision making capacity that is offered to you, how can technology control us today? Thank you.
Do we have questions for rebuttal? Yes, speaker, you may ask your question.
Speaker, you mentioned about how technology, man-made technology, has quote decision-making capacities. According to your own definition, controlling is quite essentially dictating actions, and decision-making for another person is literally controlling his actions. How do you justify your contradicted stance?
Wow, thank you for the right. Thank you for that question, sir. Right. Understand today, if you would have heard my speech, which I think I was very audible, you would have understood that today's side opposition and today we are talking about technology being an enabler. Today we are talking about technology supplementing your lifestyle and optimizing it. We are not saying that technology is making your decisions for you. That is simply the very opposite of what we are talking about. When you mention my speech, I am telling you that technology offers you the ability to make a decision rather than making the decision for you. Thank you.
Do we have another question? Go ahead.
Thank you for that speech, speaker. As you mentioned in your speech, with very ambiguous answers to examples, I would just like to point out with the examples that you gave, such as Swiggy and Uber, and how they present to you. But all of these pages at the end of the day have strong recommendation for a few products. Either highly influencing or even controlling what you take at the end of the day as your final product.
You hold on to the question for a bit.
Speaker, as you gave examples of Swiggy, Uber, and other such apps, even though they were very confined, even those specific apps highly promote a few restaurants. So when you talk about having multiple options, if those options are being highly recommended to, if you have two options but everybody is pointing at A, is that choice even a fair choice at the end of the day, and nothing, if not something that is being influenced over you, or in one word, controlled?
Right. Thank you for that question, sir. Again, I feel disappointed that this is the questioning I'm getting from side proposition. But once again, today, if today something is being recommended to you, understand that it is not being forced down your throat. You have the decision-making ability, and I hope today that as my brethren, and I hope today as a student of Martiniere College, Lucknow, you have the strength. You have the ability to follow our school motto of labore et constantia, to make a decision for yourself. Not focus on the outside influences going around you, and take a decision for yourself. Technology is not made to make decisions for you or even to highlight what decision you should make. It is simply made to supplement a life you choose to lead yourself. And if you do not have the capacity to make a decision yourself, well, sir, I just feel sorry for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anuj. And I would invite the third speaker of the proposition, Devang Pratap Singh, to present his arguments.
I hope this is audible to the House. To notify the respected timekeepers, the speaker will start in 3, 2, and 1. About 40 minutes ago, the principal speaker of side opposition came up here. He came up here with a burden to prove. His burden was to prove how the technology that connects us does not control us. After that, they only provided us with 2 constructives, only 2. I am here to prove to you why those constructives were not directly relevant to the motion given to the House today, and why it does not benefit to their side of the House So the House may acknowledge right now that their burden remains unproved. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Devang Pratap Singh, and as the third speaker of proposition, I stand here firmly to reconstruct the arguments given by side proposition and to provide rebuttals to the arguments given by side opposition today. So the principal speaker started this speech by saying that influence and control are not the same thing. So if you open the thesaurus and look for either one of the words, you will find the second or third word synonymous to each other. Influence and control are literally synonymous to each other. They are different because they are spelled different, alright, but they are literally synonymous to each other. Let me tell you how. Alright, so in the Constitution of India it is written, it is clearly manifested in the Constitution of India that the Prime Minister has an influence on the President. But in practicality, the Prime Minister also controls the President. This is the logical bridge that connects influence and control. And it's very sad to break it down, their entire argument was based upon that. Secondly, the technology that connects us. The second speaker was really, aggressive on the fact that we had inhibited ourselves to only social media apps. No, sir, that's not the case. That's not the case. The truth is that the technology that connects us includes all the social media apps, Uber, Swiggy, Zomato, alright. The flights, yes, the railway stations, alright. How does that prove your point? You only came up here and told us about the pros of technology. So how does that exactly prove your point that it does not control us? Alright, so the only constructive that the principal speaker provided to us today was that, in a very subtle manner he tried to establish that, the entire case of side proposition is that we use technology regularly, so it controls us. Ladies and gentlemen, that was not the case. Let me explain what was our case. When you are interacting with something, you are engaging with it. Now, engagement is a two-way thing. When you are engaging with technology, the technology engages with you. And that technology has an influence over you. And when you are influenced to a certain extent, that particular entity starts controlling you. That was the rationale of side proposition today. And side opposition had no actual rationale. Now, to reconstruct the argument laid down by my principal speaker and also to rebuttal to their second speaker, they said that the case is that social media supports idealism more than it does in physical life. So what does it create? It creates unrealistic standards. So when you see unrealistic standards being proprietary around you, you dwell into a form of introspection, and your consciousness is about inferiority complex and anxiety. Alright, so over here, it has already influenced your psychology. When those thoughts dwell in for a time long enough, ladies and gentlemen, that is when technology starts taking control of you. Now, another constructive that they gave, that pros of social media. Alright, the first speaker came up here and talked about a Ugandan kid who might have access to education through the form of social media. Again, sir, how does that prove your point that technology does not control us? We are not talking about the pros and cons of social media. We are talking whether connective technology controls us or not. So, finally, even if we assume that the arguments on both sides are absolutely symmetrical, which are not, only for the sake of argument, if we assume that the arguments on both the sides are symmetric, here is why where side opposition lagged today is because they gave no real constructives, no logic. Their case was based on influence over control, which I opposed in the first line of my speech. And secondly, they think that dependence does not lead to control. Thank you.
Do we have questions for rebuttal from the opposing team?
You said that control means influence to a certain extent. Could you please define this certain extent exactly?
Thank you, speaker, for your speech. So now we see that when I have differentiated between influence and control, now they realize that we actually have a point, and now they accept that point. That's why they are questioning us. They are questioning on the details of our point. All right, sir. So influence to a certain extent is extremely subjective. For a person who is more quote-unquote insecure or might be more introverted, it would be a very low threshold. Whereas a person who has some point of self-confidence, that thing can be a little far. But influence always leads to control when it comes to a certain extent, and that extent is extremely subjective. But the judges, please note that now side opposition agrees to my rationale that there is a link between influence and control. Thank you.
The second question for rebuttal. All right. Thank you, Devang. I now invite the third speaker of the opposition, Pradyuman Nahata, to present his views on the topic.
We have one thing to say to side proposition. We don't agree to your rationale. Ladies and gentlemen, today, side proposition's argument has been social media is beneficial to us, but it does not control us. They've said that social media helps us enact free speech and activism and allows us to do all the good things on a more wider scale. But apparently, because social media causes problems with beauty standards and mental health that are easily surpassable with responsible use, social media is something that controls us and apparently, adversely affects us to the most extreme extents. Ladies and gentlemen, understand that what social media allows us to do is to communicate with each other. Our priority in life, alongside several priorities, is to interact with people, is to exchange ideas, is to get to know people of different diverse backgrounds, and social media essentially allows us to do that. We invented it for that purpose. Emphasis on we invented it. Today's side opposition's argument has hinged on one thing. All the technology that we're talking about has been invented by us. Let us take the history of evolution, historical evolution of technology. Let us talk about the telegraph and its invention. We invented the telegraph to communicate across long distances because we didn't want to live like remote hunter-gatherers, isolated from people of different nations, isolated from people scavenging the forests in the North Pole. Understand that we invented electricity because we wanted to essentially have light. So I can see you, the audience, and the audience, you, can see me speak. We invented automobiles, another technology that connects us, that allows us to be more efficient travelers and get to each other faster, was invented by us. Let us talk about the mobile phones and social media that they've so seminally spoken about. That is what characterizes most of today's debate, right? Because it's been confined. But I do agree. Oh my God. Yeah, I do agree that today social media is the most prominent means of communication, the most prominent means of networking, is the most prominent technology present in today's world. Ladies and gentlemen, understand that this social media is a platform for enacting democratic change, to have free and open dialogue, to have free and open social interactions. They say that we are controlled by it, but the very basis of social media is decentralization of interaction. On YouTube, you will see videos analyzing the pitfalls in Putin's regime and why he should be taken down, how he manipulates Russia's constitution, and how he essentially imposes autocratic rule over a country which is supposed to be constitutionally democratic. That is the power of social media. Because I did not earlier know about the pitfalls of Putin's regime besides the fact that he had invaded Ukraine. But the very fact that I can go to YouTube and watch a video on that, ladies and gentlemen, is the fact that social media is in many ways useful. And more importantly, allows us to enact control, allows us to take change. Ladies and gentlemen, they've spoken about beauty standards, they've spoken about the impact on self-confidence, but ladies and gentlemen, understand that happens in an offline setting as well. Social media facilitates what is important, social connection. As a consequence, what are the pitfalls of social communication? Underconfidence, arrogance, comparing yourself to other people and feeling like you're better than them. Isolation are things that happen in offline settings. They don't control us. Perhaps on Instagram, Snapchat, and other such platforms, there are exaggerated stimuli. But these come with safeguards as well. They've said that technology helps us be more sufficient. That is exactly what social media is designed to be. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about Steve Jobs, innovative designer and founder of Apple. He based his entire philosophy of designing Apple as a company, Apple products as products, on user interfaces and easier, more convenient user control. He wanted us to be productive and gain charge of our lives, which is what we do today with our iPhones, even though some of us might be immersed completely in the stimuli they provide us with. Ladies and gentlemen, Instagram and Snapchat, as I said, allow us to communicate better, allow us to take charge of communication. The second speaker of side opposition comes here and says that social media knows what you like and how you like it. Well, my mother also knows what I like and how I like it. Advertisement works on an offline setting as well. Talk about how in the late 1800s there were people wanting to sell guns, wanting to profit off of their discovery on gunpowder, and that is why they created an image of the wild, wild west to essentially propel war. That is how they control today's society, but their time society. But fortunately, that is not how the world works. We provide backlash against control. Today, when social media steals our data, today when Mark Zuckerberg founds a platform and allows it to steal or infringe your privacy, there is backlash on social media. There is the enabling of social media to take charge of communication. I would like to reiterate the words of John F. Kennedy when he spoke about the United States launching a mission to space. He said that we choose to do it. We do it because we can. We do it because it's hard. Today, the differentiation between influence and control completely falls through when you think about an authoritarian regime and when you think about a democratic regime. Propaganda does not equate to control of constitutional mechanisms. In a democratic country, a government or a party, I'm not going to mention any specific names, can still push its agenda through religious mottos to a big extent. But truly controlling or truly having absolute authority over an audience or over a group of people needs that direct, spottable causal link, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, I'd like to end my speech. Thank you.
Questions for rebuttal?
Thank you, Speaker, for your speech. So when it has been firmly established that teenagers face anxiety issues due to their exposure to social media form of connective technology. So when social media is literally controlling the way their minds work, how does that not fall under your definition of control?
So you literally just made the biggest logical leap in your question. You said that children have anxiety issues and that is how social media controls their minds. So let me tell you about something called dopamine detoxing or taking breaks from social media. It is essentially when you limit your social media usage, when you limit yourself from interacting too much with digital environments and allow yourself to connect with nature. I do agree that teenagers face anxiety issues. They are constantly on their phones, they're constantly looking at stimuli, they're constantly looking at posts, they're constantly looking at advertisements. But they can't stop that. And a lot of successful people who make it in their lives do stop that. They understand that social media is not the center of everything, but a platform to enact change, a platform to push forward your own personal mission. Thank you.
Second question for rebuttal. Yes, you may ask your question.
Speaker, according to you, is inciting violence, not to mention the Trump Capitol Hill riot controversy, due to freedom of speech on social media justified? And if not, then you yourself are placing a restriction on that freedom of speech, thereby contradicting your stance. How do you justify it?
So I have a question. One, that dictators before social media was launched, wasn't that authoritarian control before social media was launched? Just because social media helped incite a riot, allegedly, you have chosen to completely link the involvement of Instagram in Trump directing the Republican Party to overhaul and incite riots in front of the Congress. Even if social media facilitated that, social media has facilitated a lot of other things, like inciting groundbreaking democratic protests in the Middle East, like allowing people to voice their own opinions in a region that traditionally oppresses it. The Arab Spring is literally founded on the foundations of social media, and so are a lot of other democratic movements, so a lot of other social changes, including changes in the sphere of climate change, including changes in the sphere of decentralization of finance, including changes in the sphere of equity, whether it be in case of gender, race, class, or caste. I literally outsized your example with 4 other examples, because that's just how social media works, because that's just how many, there are so many things you can do on that. Thank you.
Judges, please note that the speaker took 1 minute 55 seconds extra. Thank you, Pradyuman. I now invite Nikhilesh Mukherjee to sum up the argument for side opposition.
Ladies and gentlemen, today's side proposition made a bewildering claim. If you go to Google and search the meaning of control, somewhere down the line in the list of synonyms you will find influence. This makes me think that what side opposite proposition has done in today's debate is essentially this. Gone on to Google, searched the list of cons of social media and equated it to their case for today. That is not what they are supposed to do. According to the first speaker and the third speaker, their burden of proof for today was to prove that if social media influences people to a certain extent, their case is true. Today, the third speaker claimed that I accepted this definition when I asked him the details. The reason I asked him the details was to find out the validity of this definition, and he played into my hands. Today, side proposition has not been able to tell us what control is, when control in fact is a very simple thing. Control means deciding what a person does. Control means deciding the exact action, the exact route, and the exact choices that a person makes. Today, when side proposition and side opposition speak in this debate, they are influencing members of the House because they are making them think certain things. However, if only side proposition spoke today, or only side opposition spoke today, then the members of the House would have access to only one opinion. That would be control. What's happening here is influence. Ladies and gentlemen, therefore, the equation, the entire premise of side proposition lies on this equation, that control is equal to influence, when in fact influence and control are two entirely different things. Influence and control is what sets apart a democracy from a dictatorship. The difference between influence and control is what sets apart a debate from dogma. Ladies and gentlemen, that if that foundation of their case is faulty, then everything that came after that is faulty, and none of their case stands. The second equation that side proposition has made today is that dependence on technology is equal to control of technology. Ladies and gentlemen, today I am dependent on my vocal cords here to speak today. That does not mean my vocal cords are controlling what I am speaking today. Ladies and gentlemen, just because I am dependent on something, just because something is necessary to human society, does not mean humans are controlled by it. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a fundamental part of social progress that we need to find tools to which impel, which take us on this path to progress. However, ladies and gentlemen, because at every moment we are dependent on these tools, does not mean we can change these tools for ourselves. In the 1800s, we were dependent on telegrams. We overcame that dependence. Now we are dependent on telephones. In 200 years, we may be dependent on something else entirely. Just if, like side proposition says, that social media controls us today, we would never be able to break apart from that control. Similarly, we would never be able to come from telegrams to social media, from telephone to WhatsApp. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the simple logical flaw in both these equations. Dependence is equal to control does not stand. Influence is equal to control certainly does not stand. Coming to the first speaker's individual points. Today, he talked about the various negative impacts. He said that because looking at social media, some people feel like vomiting, social media controls them. Ladies and gentlemen, today if I feel like vomiting after listening to side proposition, that does not mean I'm controlled by them. Ladies and gentlemen, therefore this debate is not about the negative impacts of social media. It's about the relation of social media to the human psyche. Ladies and gentlemen, and this was explained by side proposition today. Control would be if social media forced itself upon us. Side proposition itself gave us the explanation. We use social media, we use technology, we use every human tool because it makes our lives easier. That is not control, ladies and gentlemen, that is a deliberate choice. Coming to the second speaker's points. Today, he talked about the beauty standards and political correctness which is prevalent on social media. Ladies and gentlemen, the very fact that today we can come here and say that these beauty standards and political correctness are being imposed on people and that is wrong, is fact that these are not being imposed on people. The moment there is opposition, the moment there is a dialogue of two opposing voices, you don't have control anymore. You have opposing spheres of influence. Just like today, if two friends are allies, if two countries are allies, they influence each other. They do not control each other. However, if a country is the colony of another country, then they control each other. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, today, summing up how our constructives are relevant, while today's side propositions constructives are absolutely irrelevant to what this motion demands. This motion demands a connection. This motion demands us to define the relationship between technology. Is it one of control, or is it one of granting or of enabling? We have told you it's one of enabling because of the very fact that there is a group on social media which emphasizes beauty standards, and there is an opposing group on social media which forces and criticizes these beauty standards. And we, the users of social media, have the power to make that choice because of the very fact that if social media was a controlling aspect, well then, the child in Uganda would never be able to access education, would never be able to use his telephone. It's because social media is an enabling thing that the child can decide how to use his telephone. The child is no longer bound to the shackles of his condition. In fact, he's liberated and enabled by social media, and that's why he turns to social media. Not because he's controlled by social media, but because he sees advantage in social media. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the crux of our argument today. Social media does not control us. We give it to ourselves. It is a platform with a multitude of choices. It is a platform which emphasizes the human ability to go beyond the shackles of confinement and control to a state of liberty, to a state of enablement and opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikhilesh. Judges, please note that the speaker took 1 minute 34 seconds extra. I now invite Ayan Rizvi to sum up the argument for side proposition.
Very good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen, and before I begin, I would like to highlight 2 points which side opposition relied upon. More than presenting to us logical arguments, they presented to us 2 words. Number 1, laughing. Number 2, talking about logic, which they did not have in their speech. Second, understand, ladies and gentlemen, that is what it is, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day. Also, understand that the first speaker of side opposition came up here and said that he needs to use his vocal cords at this point in time. Understand that more than his vocal cords, he needs this mic and this speaker so that all of you can hear him. He is dependent on the speaker, he is dependent on the mic. Having clarified this, also understand, ladies and gentlemen, that if we assume that both sides have equal weightage in their arguments, here is why our side was better. Because we did not listen to the pros, because we mentioned the pros and cons and thereafter provided to you a comparative analysis, whereas side opposition only provided to you the cons of the topic without having a clash which needed to be presented. They did not at all showcase that how technology does not at all agree to what they've been mentioning. Having specified this, also understand, ladies and gentlemen, that they mentioned that we as side proposition used internet to make our speeches, and then they came to Lucknow in order to speak in this debate, whatever they spoke. But yes, they came into Lucknow for this debate, and that was through technology. Again, they are being dependent on the technology which exists. And thereafter, we are being controlled by technology because, again, they talked about dopamine which hits, right? That is what makes you repeatedly go back to technology. That is what causes you to be dependent on technology, and therefore you are surely being controlled by the technology. Now, if we take the example of the most basic technological evolutions, it was the invention of telephones, as I mentioned in the principal speaker's speech. To conclude this particular point, although letters were the most widely used platform due to telephone's easy-to-use method, convenience, and methodology, it helped in connecting us to people, but also controlled us in a way that it has changed us. We also do not need to move forward in a very beneficial manner. It can be a change of any sort. Also, to clarify the definition of control, it is when a person is partially or completely influenced by something in any aspect. And also to clarify the difference between control and influence. Ladies and gentlemen, they came up and specifically mentioned that they are taking it from the dictionary. We gave you actual logical definitions of the key terms. Therefore, again, our side stance is way ahead of theirs. Secondly, we also need to understand a very important point, which is of the fact that they said social media is what we give to ourselves and it is for our convenience. Okay, fine. That is what we also agree to, but because you are so happy with it that
you are being controlled by it. You are extremely happy of using social media as a tool. Therefore, people move ahead to excessively use it to complete any and every task which is presented to them. This is what social media is doing, ladies and gentlemen. In the end, it is making all of us dependent on it. Today, we see these are cameras which are there in front of us. How are you going to record a particular meeting or debate or any competition of sorts without using technology? Aren't you dependent on technology? You are. That is what the burden of side proposition today was. We had to prove to you that how technology is going to be there and we as people are controlled by technology. Then, ladies and gentlemen, also understand that technology is what gives us a lot of opportunities, is what they mentioned. Now, again, if we are getting opportunities from a particular technology, and because of that, we are able to make better use of whatever is provided to us. That is what will make us more dependent on the same thing. That is what will make us go repeatedly to that same thing. That is what side proposition's burden was. And also, again, clarifying that connect is something which we define when two or more entities are linked or associated together, whether directly or indirectly. So you are unknowingly dependent on technology, yet you surely are dependent on technology. Having said that, I am extremely proud to propose. Thank you so much. Vive la Martiniere.
Thank you, Ayan. May I now request the judges to kindly proceed for the totaling of the marks. The judges, kindly proceed for the totaling of the marks. While the judges are busy totaling the marks and we have the final results, before that, I would invite the fourth speaker of both sides to present their views. I first begin with the fourth speaker of the proposition, Vinayak Tandon.
Good evening, members of the House. This is Big Apple iPhone 18. Let me just introduce the new specification it offers. It has customer-oriented nature, optimizes your lifestyle decision-making capacity. Offers decision-making capacity. It supplements your lifestyle, gives people choices and freedoms, and is essentially time-saving. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the debate of the side opposition. They told us why technology has pros, but they never told us how controlling it can be. Trust me, every time they had a logical fallacy, I sold one of these handsets. I don't know where Samsung stands and where do I. Moving on. When we talk about the arguments of the side opposition, they talked about how dependence is not equal to control. Influence does not equal to control. They rather defined influence as impacts or effects. Let's realize what impacts or effects are. So basically, according to them, if 10 times a day someone is constantly troubling them, they are impacting them and influencing their lifestyle, but will have literally no control over their mental health and will have no control over how they are functioning throughout the day or what their mood will be. Moving on, when we talked about how exactly what influence is, they came up here and mentioned about how too much influence or too much impact makes a person changed to a certain extent. But they never defined what a certain extent here is, but rather asked the side proposition back. Great move, side opposition, I love that. Moving on, when starting in the speech of the first speaker, they mentioned about how an author controls the life of a person, giving a totally irrelevant example of people and books when the topic clearly states connecting people and technology. Lastly, to the speaker using his vocal cords during this debate, don't raise your voice, improve your arguments. With that, I'm very, very proud to propose. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vinayak. May I now request the fourth speaker of the opposition, Arav Midha, to present his arguments.
Ladies and gentlemen, today side proposition has blurred the lines between influence and control so much that I myself don't know whether to be influenced by their speeches and come up with rebuttals, or to be completely entranced and in control by their arguments and start speaking for them. Now, with that, a very good evening to everyone present here, respected chairperson, sir, honorable judges, members of the house, and my most worthy opponents. The topic placed before us today reads, the technology that connects us also controls us. But the real conflict in today's debate, I believe, is between influence and control. Now, understand, ladies and gentlemen, what technology essentially provides us is a choice. The end goal may remain the same. Today, I am present in a debate over here. The end goal is to interact with the audience. I could choose to do it away from the mic or into the mic. But that is the beauty of technology. It gives me the opportunity to interact with each and every person in this audience, up till the last person in that gallery to the first person sitting over there, more efficiently, better. And this is what technology provides for us at the end of the day. It is not a hindering aspect. Understand, it is there to make human connections, this connect that is being discussed in this motion, more efficient. It is not a controller, ladies and gentlemen. It is a facilitator. It is an enabler. Now, much like the marking scheme of a fourth speaker, what side proposition has essentially done is judge the topic on general impression and not on its actual worth. Understand, ladies and gentlemen, let's compare the 700-acre campus of Martiniere College, Lucknow, to technology that connects us. What side proposition has thought of this is just restricted within the walls of Spence Hall. They have restricted the motion just to include social media. But understand, ladies and gentlemen, that is not the only technology that connects us that we're talking about. There is aeroplanes, there is motorcycles, there is several automobiles which include technology. And as my first speaker said, technology is essentially the adaptation. It is the usage of scientific theory into a practical setting. Now, understand, today we in the opposition hail from Calcutta, a city 889 kilometers away from where I stand today. Now, we made this journey to this annual extravaganza on an aeroplane, which is a method of technology which connects us. It is something which has been extremely beneficial in connecting people in one corner of the world to the other. Now, if we followed side proposition's notion that, oh, technology that connects us is bad for us, we should not utilize this, we should discourage this. If we followed this logic, ladies and gentlemen, I would have had to make the journey to Lucknow on foot. Now, why doesn't a person do this at the end of the day? Because it is our rational thinking, it is basic human logic that we appreciate things which increase our efficiency. We appreciate things which make our lives easier. And this is what side opposition's viewpoint on technology is. As I mentioned in my speech before, it is an enabler, it is a facilitator, and not a hindrance, it is not a controlling factor. With that, I'm very, very proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you, Arav. Are there any questions for rebuttal for either of the speakers, Vinayak or Arav? Both of them were very quick to walk back to their seats, but if there are any questions from the opposing teams, we can take them up. The rebuttal. No questions? All right, so with that, I throw the debate open to the House. If there's anyone who wishes to present their views on the topic, we will be happy to hear them. There are students walking, yeah.
Madam Speaker, I would...
Yes, go ahead, please.
Good evening, members of the House. I'm Suya Shukla and currently in grade 11th. So, I'll start with saying that you'll keep trying to push us in the mud, but our brothers, they will raise us back. And that is the connect caused by Khak. and that is the control of khaki. To move on, let us begin with what the actual topic today meant. It is the technology that connects us, which also controls us at the end of the day. I would ask side opposition as well as many members of the House today to go home and search the difference between ownership and control. Because one of the laws of India clearly state, which the law judgment is Sri Marthanda Verma versus State of Kerala, it clearly talks that whenever control is meant, control isn't the ownership of a technology. Control is the power to exercise it. And that is something which isn't limited to the owner of a particular technology. For example, we are having this debate here at the Spence Hall. Let's guess that we do not have these amplifiers. Let's just assume that we don't have these lights or even this stage. We will still have the idea to have the debates, but we won't have the resources. But hence, we would have a debate, it would be somewhat smaller, but at the end of the day, it wouldn't be as magnificent debate as it stands today. And that is why these technologies control us. Moreover, after a certain extent, there is inevitability that you cannot remove or just boycott at any point of time. We also need to realize the fact that, for example, we have mutated from being hunter-gatherers to being civilized humans now. If we are sent back to forests to be hunter-gatherers again, we won't be able to, because technology has forced us, technology has coerced us, and we are now stranded in a situation that this or certain set of technologies actually control our living being. But at the end of the day, if we still start by boycotting technologies, are we actually human beings? There is a bridge that connects the river back there. Should we boycott it just because we don't want to cross the bridge anymore? Is it sensible, ladies and gentlemen? Clearly not. And to comment on flaws or logical fallacies brought towards us by either of the sides, I would say that there were flaws both from side proposition as well as side opposition. And if I were to take a step for every fallacy side proposition would have made today, I would end up at the dormitory at the Muse. And if I were to take a step at each fallacy made by Martiniere, Calcutta, or the side opposition today, I would reach the dormitory again, but there at Calcutta. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
A very good evening to everyone present here. Both the teams, you're very fortunate to be here physically today because I ended up missing my debate altogether. Not even online, it just didn't happen. So you guys are very fortunate. I just had two thoughts for today's debate. Congratulations to both teams for speaking so well. One was that the controlling element which technology has in today's times has increased a lot. And the burden of proof for both sides by side proposition was defined very well, and by the second speaker of Martiniere, Calcutta as well. What you have to understand is, I could give the example of a person giving cocaine to a monkey, right? So the monkey behaves very well, the monkey is well on his own. And for example, if I work in a lab and I give the monkey cocaine every day, so the cocaine is the controlling element, and that is how technology acts today. Social media in particular, that it acts as a controlling element in people's lives. And the definition of influence which side proposition brought about today was the spectrum on which this influence lies. Because, like for example, cocaine has certain elements which prey on dopamine. Technology also, especially social media, is designed in such a way which induces dopamine in a human's brain. And whenever you hear a ting or a ping from your phone that someone has posted a photo, the network effect that everyone is on this app, and you'll be ostracized by society if you're not present on certain social media apps, or if you're not connected by certain aspects of technology. That is how you end up being, to a certain extent, controlled by it. And that extent is what matters. If the extent is a lot, then you end up being controlled. And the worst aspect of being controlled is when you yourself don't know that you're being controlled. So a very good debate by both sides, really enjoyable. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, please go ahead. you could go to the podium and talk.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah. So I had a question on your speech. So you spoke about how excessive narcotics consumption is something that can control certain humans, and you compared that to the controlling influence of technology. However, do you not realize that there are several Alcoholics Anonymous and rehabilitation institutions present in human society to help humans take control of their consumption, which is the major element involved in the consumption in the first place, the intention to consume narcotics, or the weakness that debilitates you and doesn't, prevent you from falling into excessive consumption.
Right, I understood your question. So what you're basically talking about is elements which help the other person recover, right? So if someone has to recover, you have to understand there is a problem in the first place. And social media as of now is designed in such a way to induce certain problems, And technology as a whole, what you said, the second speaker from your side defined it very well, that it does not actually fall just under social media. So that was a very good point from your team.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for both of your speeches.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else?
I hope I'm audible now. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Without further ado, I would like to just point out the major points missed out by side opposition and some points in favor of the topic. So basically, a major point missed by side opposition was that influence is a phenomenon that leads to control. When you like a concept, then only does that dependency increase, and then only are you controlled by that particular phenomenon. The side opposition kept talking about the positives of technology, but they failed to note that the excessive use of anything is adversely proportionate to the people's minds. And when does that take place? When a person is controlled by that piece of technology. How the algorithm is planned in such a way that they feel influenced and eventually controlled by it. If there's Swiggy, there are even games like PUBG which influence people's views and controls a person to an extent that they are ready to waste 8 hours of their days in this. Furthermore, it is not me. Psychologists agree to this fact that technology in all varied forms can and has led to control. To conclude, I would like to just highlight that Martiniere Cal was very audible today. But what benefit did it do? When their points were just like the dodo bird, completely non-existential. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another speaker who wishes to present his views. May I request the speakers to please introduce themselves before they start making their argument?
Thank you for recognizing me, Madam Chairperson. My name is Aryan Chaudhary, and a very good evening to everyone present today. The speaker would like to just point out a few points that could have been spoken and maybe emphasized a bit more in today's debate. Number one, in today's debate, we could have emphasized more on how technology latches us onto an endless loop of conversation and connection. And it is not about more the people, but the user interface that technology itself uses that controls us. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to understand that it is the easy to use interface, the immersive interface that technology propagates is the reason for it controlling us, for it influencing us so much so that it amounts to controlling us. Which brings me to my second point, which is influence amounting to control. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to understand that technology helps us to spread ideas and ideology, to people, using which we start to believe in those ideas and ideologies so strongly that it is as if we have been controlled by that idea or ideology, as if we have been hypnotized, which Madam Chairperson must be knowing a lot about, by that idea and ideology. And to conclude, I would like to just present a side note on the side opposition, rather than providing with mockeries and uncle jokes for the side proposition and the members of the House to hear, which made our ears bleed. They should have promoted and spoken a more logical and a more conclusive stance with logical explanations and logical arguments, which would have led to a more fruitful debate. Thank you. And go Mart.
Thank you. All right, we have one more speaker from the House who wishes to present his views.
I hope I'm audible there. Alright. So, very good evening to all the ladies and gentlemen present here. I, Amay Gupta, would like to present my arguments against the agenda of today's debate, which is the technology which connects us, also controls us. And while moving to my argument, I would go with the main terms of today's debate. Firstly, technology that connects us. Now, technology that connects us can be any technology which eradicates the barrier of communication or the barrier of transportation. The side proposition limited the case only towards communication. But while the barriers of transportation can also be eradicated through this particular technology, which includes the roadways, the railways, and every other platform which eradicates these particular barriers. Secondly, let's compare the two words here: the technology which connects us and the technology which controls us. Firstly, it's integral to understand the fact that technology that connects us, it's not necessary that it controls us. It's just an item. It's just a tool which we decide to choose how we want to use it. It is just a supplement for how we use it. A person who may have good interest with that technology may use it in a positive manner, but a person who has this negative impacts towards it may use it in a negative manner. And similarly, it is highly dependent on the person himself on how he chooses a person or he chooses the technology. And the control of it highly depends on how he uses it, what is the motive of his use. Because again, technology is just a tool of human being and it's the humans which control it. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've heard, all right, come on.
Am I audible? Am I audible? So very good evening to one and all present here. As we all are aware of today's topic, that is the technology that connects us also controls us. Going on Google, searching for every possible synonym of word control. This was a statement made by the side opposition today. But member of the House, isn't that ironic? Because what exactly side opposition did today was to find every possible synonym of control and create the distinction between the two. Dependency versus control, influence versus control, impact versus control. Member of the House, before I move into the arguments of today's debate, allow me to tell that the definition made by the side opposition of control was to a very, very extent. Having a control on someone's life by this particular technology means having an impact, having an influence in somehow or somewhat possible manner. The definition given by the principal speaker of side opposition today was that having a control on someone's life is a very rigid form. Having a control means having a control in a very extent. Having a control means having a control in very rigid form. Allow me to give three arguments. On internet, people create imaginary identities, right? In virtual world and spend hours creating a parallel lives. The second life which is being created is because of technology, having a direct influence on their lives, having a control on their life. Allow me to give an example of when Vendors Until the End of the World movie, where human beings became addicted to the technology that shows shows the video images that were being created inside their mind. How is it not possible that we cannot say that control is not being created? Thank you, member of the House. May the best team wins. Vive le Martiniere.
I do have the results with me, but before I move on, if someone from La Martiniere, Kolkata wants to come forth and present his views, please do.
I just want to speak about the fact that side proposition leader, he spoke about the fact that the cameras are controlling the debate. I don't see it making your mouth move. However, the recording helps us laugh later at side proposition. Also, I have two options when I get a call, accept and decline. I always have a choice. Thank you.
With that, let me proceed to the results. I have the results now. The motion has been defeated. The winning team is La Martiniere for Boys, Kolkata. And the best speaker all right. The best speaker is Nikhilesh Mukherjee of La Martiniere for Boys, Kolkata. May I now invite the principal. May I now invite the principal of La Martiniere College, Lucknow, to present the awards. Principal, Mr. McFarland, ladies and gentlemen. Sir, please.
Now that the chairperson has declared the debate closed, announced the results, it is my singular honor to request her to please give away the awards at this time. Dr. Isha Yadav.
Thank you.
Many thanks to the judges, who were the only three people who actually listened to the entire argument this evening. It's a difficult thing to have to do, especially since all of us are controlled or influenced by public response. And when you are in the host school, the public response is generally all to one side. So you do have to listen very carefully, and I'm grateful for the effort that has been made. We have certificates of participation as well as of merit, which will be distributed at this time. Our runner-up team is La Martiniere College, Lucknow, represented by Sayyid Muhammad Ayan Rizvi, and I am very proud of him. Ayan is ably assisted by his vice captain, Kritin Bhasin. The supporting members of the team are Devang Pratap Singh, and Vinayak Tandon. Certificates of participation as well as of Merit to the winning team, La Martiniere for Boys, Kolkata. Well, I understand you have every reason to rejoice. Pradyum Nahata as the captain. Arav Midha as the vice captain. Speakers Niklesh Mukherjee and Anuj Podar. The runners-up trophy will now be brought on stage and be presented to La Martiniere College, Lucknow. There is also a cake which is being presented to them, so they do take the cake if nothing else. Okay, congratulations, La Martiniere, Lucknow. And before we give out the really big one, here comes the trophy for the best speaker, Nikhilesh Mukherjee, La Martiniere for Boys. And here's the really big one, the Inter-Martiniere Trophy for Debating, presented by Principal C.J. Weiss of Kolkata ever so many years ago, for the year 2022, presented to La Martiniere for Boys, Kolkata. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your presence here this evening. The guests and contingent members of the contingents are invited to Sykes Hall, where we will share a meal together. Thank you very much and good night.